Myra stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive docking bay. The Kepler station stretched out in all directions, its walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. She had never seen anything like it before. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above her head, and the air smelled different here. Not bad, just different. "First time on an alien station?" asked a voice behind her. Myra turned around and saw a tall man in a dark blue uniform walking toward her. His name tag read Commander June, and he had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "Yes, sir," Myra said, trying not to sound nervous. "I'm Myra, the new systems engineer." Commander June nodded and picked up her bag. "Welcome to Kepler Station. I know it looks scary, but you'll get used to it. We all did." As they walked through the corridors, Myra tried not to stare at everything around her. The walls were smooth and curved, not like anything humans built. Strange patterns of light moved under the surface, like water flowing through glass. Sometimes she saw other humans walking by, but she also saw creatures that made her heart race. A tall, thin being with 4 arms and skin like tree bark nodded at Commander June as they passed. Its head was shaped like a triangle, and it had large, black eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "That's Dr. Keth," Commander June explained. "He's from the Thek Collective. Very smart, very helpful. The Thek have been studying this station longer than anyone." They turned a corner and nearly bumped into something that looked like a walking crystal. It was about Myra's height, but its body was made of what looked like blue glass. Light moved through it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Good morning, Veltar," Commander June said to the crystal being. The creature made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Somehow, Myra understood it was saying hello. "The Norl don't speak like we do," Commander June said as they kept walking. "They use sound and light patterns. The translation devices help, but it takes time to get used to." Myra nodded, feeling more nervous with each step. What was she doing here? She was just a basic engineer from Earth. She fixed broken things and maintained systems. She didn't know anything about alien technology or ancient civilizations. They entered a large room filled with workstations and screens. Humans and aliens worked side by side, studying images and data that scrolled across the displays. The room buzzed with quiet conversation in different languages. "This is our main research center," Commander June said. "The Valeri built this station thousands of years ago, maybe longer. We're trying to figure out how it works and why they built it here." "The Valeri?" Myra asked. "The aliens who built this place, they're gone now. Have been for a very long time. But they left this station behind, and it's full of technology we don't understand yet." A woman with short black hair looked up from her workstation and waved at them. She had dirt on her hands and looked tired but excited. "That's Dr. Hana," Commander June said. "She's our lead scientist here." "Dr. Hana, come meet our new engineer." Dr. Hana walked over, wiping her hands on a cloth. "You must be Myra. Welcome to the most frustrating job in the galaxy." "Frustrating?" Myra asked. Dr. Hana laughed. "We've been here for 2 years, and we still can't turn on most of the systems. The Valeri technology is so advanced that we can barely understand the basics. It's like trying to fix a computer with stone tools. But that's why we need good engineers," Commander June said. "Someone who can look at things differently and maybe find solutions we've missed." Dr. Hana led them to a smaller room filled with tools and spare parts. "This will be your workspace. Most of the station's basic systems are working fine. Life support, gravity, things like that. But there are whole sections we can't access because we can't figure out how to open the doors." Myra looked around the room. The tools were a mix of human and alien technology. Some things she recognized, others were completely strange. "What exactly will I be doing?" "Maintenance mostly," Dr. Hana said. "Keeping the systems we do understand running properly. But if you see anything interesting, anything that doesn't make sense, let us know. Sometimes fresh eyes see things we miss." Commander June checked his watch. "I'll let you get settled in. Dr. Hana can show you around and explain." The safety rules. The most important thing to remember is don't touch anything that glows red. We learned that the hard way. After Commander June left, Dr. Hana gave Myra a tour of the station. The parts where humans and aliens worked were bright and clean. The air was fresh and the temperature was comfortable, but they also passed sealed doors that led to dark corridors where no one was allowed to go. Those areas are off limits, Dr. Hana explained. We tried to explore them when we first arrived, but the station's security systems activated. Nothing dangerous happened, but we got locked out for 3 days. Now we stick to the areas where we're obviously welcome. They visited the dining hall, where humans and aliens ate together at long tables. The food was mostly human, but there were special sections for different alien diets. Myra watched Vec eat something that looked like metal shavings while Norrell absorbed colored liquids through its crystalline skin. It takes some getting used to, Dr. Hana said, noticing Myra's expression. But they're all good people. Well, good beings. You know what I mean? The living quarters were small, but comfortable. Myra's room had a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out into space. She could see other ships docked at the station and stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds. Get some rest tonight, Dr. Hana said. Tomorrow we'll start you on some basic maintenance tasks, nothing too complicated at first. That evening, Myra sat in her room and looked out at the stars. She thought about her family back on Earth and wondered what they would think if they could see her now. Her mother had always said she would do great things, but Myra had never believed it. She was just ordinary. Just another person trying to make her way in the universe. She fell asleep wondering if she would ever really belong here, among all these brilliant scientists and advanced aliens. The station hummed quietly around her, its ancient systems continuing their mysterious work as they had for thousands of years. In her dreams, she heard something calling to her from deep within the station. A voice that seemed familiar, though she had never heard it before. It spoke in a language she didn't recognize, but somehow she understood what it was saying. It was saying, "Welcome home." But when she woke up the next morning, she couldn't remember the dream at all. She only remembered feeling like she belonged somewhere for the first time in her life. Myra had been working on Kepler Station for 3 weeks now. The job was exactly what Dr. Hana had promised, mostly routine maintenance and simple repairs. She fixed air filters, replaced worn cables, and checked system readings that the computers flagged as unusual. It was quiet work, and she was starting to feel comfortable. The other engineers, both human and alien, had accepted her quickly. They showed her which tools worked best with Valeri technology and taught her to recognize the warning signs when systems were about to fail. The work was interesting, even if it wasn't very exciting. On this particular morning, Myra was working in Section C7, a maintenance area deep in the station. Dr. Hana had asked her to check some power readings that seemed inconsistent. The corridor was dimly lit and quiet. Most of the research teams worked in the main sections, so Myra rarely saw anyone else in the maintenance areas. She was checking a power distribution panel when she noticed something odd. The panel looked different from all the others she had worked on. While most Valeri interfaces were smooth and featureless until activated, this one had a small depression in the center, shaped almost like a handprint. Myra looked around to make sure she was alone, then pulled out her scanner to check the panel's energy readings. The device showed normal power flow, but there was something else. A very faint signal that seemed to pulse in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. She had never seen anything like it before. Following procedure, she should call Dr. Hana and report the unusual reading, but something made her hesitate. The handprint-shaped depression seemed to be calling to her, asking her to touch it. Myra knew it was against safety rules to touch unknown alien technology without permission, but the shape was so obviously meant for a human hand. What harm could it do to just place her palm against it for a second? She looked around one more time to make sure no one was watching, then slowly placed her right hand against the depression. The moment her skin touched the surface, everything changed. The panel lit up with patterns of light that flowed across its surface like water. But more than that, Myra felt something. It was like touching a live wire, but Instead of pain, there was a warm tingling that ran up her arm and spread through her whole body. Suddenly, she could understand the patterns of light. They weren't random, they were information. Data flowing through the station's systems, showing her power levels, system status, and diagnostic information. It was like seeing the station's nervous system laid out in front of her, but that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was that it felt familiar, like she had done this before many times. Her hand moved across the interface without conscious thought, accessing deeper levels of the system. She found herself navigating through layers of data that she didn't know existed. Then the station began to wake up. It started small. Lights that had been dark for thousands of years began to flicker on in the corridor around her. The air circulation system hummed to life with a sound deeper and more powerful than anything she had heard before. The floor beneath her feet vibrated as massive machinery. Somewhere in the station's core began to move. Myra jerked her hand away from the panel, but it was too late. Whatever she had activated was spreading through the station like wildfire. Lights blazed to life in sections that had been dark since the research teams arrived. Computer systems that no one had been able to access suddenly came online, their displays showing information in the flowing Valeri script. Her communication device crackled to life. "All personnel report to stations immediately," Commander June's voice said, tight with tension. "We have multiple system activations throughout the station. This is not a drill." Myra ran toward the main research center, her heart pounding. What had she done? As she ran through the corridors, she saw lights coming on everywhere. Panels that had been dead for millennia were glowing with soft blue light. The walls themselves seemed to be waking up, with patterns of energy flowing beneath their surfaces. She burst into the research center to find chaos. Every screen in the room was active, showing data that scrolled by too fast to read. Dr. Hana was running from workstation to workstation, trying to understand what was happening. The alien researchers looked confused and worried. "What's the status?" Commander June was asking as he entered the room. "Sir, we have system activations in every section of the station," Dr. Hana reported. "Power consumption has increased by 300%. Whole areas that we've never been able to access are coming online." Dr. Keth, the Vec researcher, made a clicking sound that Myra's translator converted to words. "This should not be possible. The Valeri systems have been dormant for 3,000 years. Nothing we have tried has been able to activate them." "Could it be some kind of automatic system?" Commander June asked. "A scheduled activation?" Dr. Hana shook her head. "We've been monitoring the station for 2 years. There's been no indication of any kind of timer or automatic sequence." Veltar, the neural researcher, made the chiming sound that meant urgent attention was needed. The translation came through as, "The awakening is centered in section C7. That is where the activation began." All eyes turned to look at Myra. She felt her face getting hot as everyone stared at her. "Myra," Commander June said slowly, "weren't you working in section C7 this morning?" "Yes, sir," she said in a small voice. "I was checking power readings like Dr. Hana asked. Did you see anything unusual? Any indication that systems were about to activate?" Myra hesitated. She could tell them about the panel, about the handprint-shaped depression and how touching it had felt so natural. But looking around at all the worried faces, she lost her courage. "No, sir," she said. "I was just checking the power distribution panel when everything started happening." Dr. Hana pulled up a schematic of section C7 on her screen. "Show us exactly where you were working." Myra pointed to the location on the map. Dr. Hana frowned and enlarged the image. "That's odd," she said. "According to our surveys, there shouldn't be any active systems in that area. Just basic power distribution." Commander June turned to the alien researchers. "Have either of your species ever seen anything like this before? Any records of Valeri technology activating spontaneously?" Both Dr. Keth and Veltar made negative sounds. Dr. Keth spoke first. "The Valeri were very careful with their technology. Everything was designed with multiple safeguards. Spontaneous activation would have been impossible." Veltar's chiming was translated as, unless the systems were responding to something specific, something they were designed to recognize. Like what? Dr. Hannah asked. Unknown, Veltar replied. The Valeri left very few records of their intentions. The station continued to hum around them as more systems came online. In the distance, they could hear the sound of massive doors opening for the first time in millennia. The air itself seemed different now, charged with energy that made Myra's skin tingle. Sir, one of the human technicians called out, we're getting readings from sections of the station we didn't even know existed. It's like the entire structure is 3 times larger than we thought. Commander June looked grim. All right, people. We need to understand what's happening here. I want teams monitoring all active systems. If anything looks dangerous, we evacuate immediately. As everyone hurried to their tasks, Mara stood in the middle of the chaos and tried to understand what she had done. The station was alive now in a way it had never been before. And deep down, in a part of her mind she didn't understand, she knew that this was just the beginning. Something was calling to her from the newly awakened sections of the station. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. Captain Tay stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Harmony, watching the data stream in from long-range sensors. What he was seeing didn't make sense. 3 hours ago, Kepler Station had been a quiet research outpost. Now it was broadcasting signals across half the galaxy. Captain, his communications officer called out, we're receiving priority messages from Earth Command, the Thek Collective, and the Neural Assembly, all marked urgent. Put Earth Command through first, Captain Tay ordered. Admiral Kong's face appeared on the main screen. She looked worried, which was unusual for her. Admiral Kong never looked worried. Captain Tay, what's the situation at Kepler Station? She asked without any greeting. Unknown, Admiral. 3 hours ago, the station experienced massive system activations. Power output increased dramatically, and previously unknown sections came online. Commander June reports that his teams are investigating. Admiral Kong frowned. We're tracking the activation signature from Earth. The energy readings are unlike anything we've seen before. But that's not our biggest problem, ma'am. Every major alien power in this sector is mobilizing their fleets. The Thek are moving 6 battle groups toward your position. The Noral have dispatched their entire 3rd fleet, even some species. We barely know are heading your way. Captain Tay felt his stomach drop. Are we looking at an invasion? We don't think so. The aliens are sending diplomatic signals along with their military forces. They're not coming to attack. They're coming to contain something. And that something appears to be connected to Kepler Station. Before Captain Tay could respond, his communications officer spoke up again. Captain, incoming message from the Thek battle group. They're requesting immediate communication. Put them through, Admiral Kong said. I want to hear this. The screen split to show a Thek commander. Its triangular head was darker than usual, which Captain Tay knew meant stress or fear. When a Thek was afraid, humans should be very worried. Human vessels, the Thek commander said in its clicking voice. You must evacuate all human personnel from the Valeri station immediately. This is not a request. Commander, Admiral Kong said, this is Admiral Kong of Earth Defense. On what authority do you make this demand? Authority of the Galactic Safety Protocols, established 4,000 years ago. The activation of Valeri defensive systems constitutes a Code 7 emergency. All inheritor species must be contained until the threat can be assessed. Captain Tay looked at Admiral Kong. Neither of them had ever heard of Galactic Safety Protocols, or anything called inheritor species. Commander, Admiral Kong said carefully, we're not familiar with these protocols. Can you explain what you mean by inheritor species? The Thek made a sound that the translator couldn't convert. After a moment, it spoke again. You truly do not know? Your species has no records of the old warnings? We have no idea what you're talking about. Captain Tay said. Another voice joined the conversation, the chiming tones of a Noral leader. Captain Tay's screen split again to show the crystalline being's flowing light patterns. The humans speak truth, the Noral said. Their ignorance is genuine. They do not know what they are. What we are? Admiral Kong asked. What are you talking about? That commander's head grew even darker. 4,000 years ago, the Valeri left warnings. They spoke of a species that would one day emerge from the outer systems. A species that could interface with their technology. A species that would awaken their defensive systems just by existing. The Valeri called them the Burning Ones, the Norl added. Beings whose very presence would trigger ancient protocols. Beings who carried the potential to either save the galaxy or destroy it. Captain Tay felt like the deck was shifting under his feet. Are you saying that humans are these Burning Ones? The activation of the Valeri station confirms it, the Vec said. Only an inheritor could awaken technology that has slept for millennia? This is exactly what the warnings predicted. Admiral Kang's voice was steady, but Captain Tay could see the tension in her face. And what do these warnings say should be done? Containment, both aliens said at the same time. All human space is to be quarantined, the Vec continued. No. Human ships may leave their systems. No human may have access to technology beyond their current level. This is for the safety of all galactic civilization. They're talking about imprisoning our entire species, Admiral Kang said. We are talking about preventing galactic war, the Norl replied. The Valeri warnings are clear. The emergence of the inheritors marks the beginning of the end times. Ancient enemies will return. The galaxy will burn unless the inheritors are contained. Captain Tay looked at his tactical display. More ships were appearing at the edge of sensor range every minute. Vec battle cruisers, Norl crystal ships, and vessels from species he didn't recognize, all of them heading for Kepler Station. How many ships are we looking at? He asked his tactical officer. Approximately 200 vessels from 12 different species, sir. And more arriving every hour. Admiral Kang closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her voice was calm and professional. Captain Tay, you are ordered to maintain position and protect Kepler Station. Do not engage unless fired upon. I'm dispatching every available ship to your location. Admiral, the Vec commander said, do not force us to take action. Evacuate your people from the station and return to your home systems. This is your only warning, and if we refuse? Admiral Kang asked. Then we will do what we must to protect the galaxy. The Norl answered. The alien communications cut off, leaving Captain Tay and Admiral Kang alone on the screen. Sir, Captain Tay said, what are your orders? Admiral Kang was quiet for a long moment. Captain, we have no idea what we're dealing with here. Ancient warnings, galactic protocols, talk of end times, it all sounds like nonsense, but those ships out there are very real. Do you think they'll actually attack us? I think they're terrified, Captain, and terrified people do desperate things. Admiral Kang leaned forward. But we can't abandon our people on that station. Whatever's happening there, whatever these Valeri warnings are about, we need to understand it. Captain Tay looked at his tactical display again. His single ship against 200 alien vessels. Any word from Earth about reinforcements? Every ship we have is coming, but it'll take time. You need to hold that position and protect the station until we can figure out what's really going on. Understood, Admiral. After the communication ended, Captain Tay stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien? Fleets were converging on his position. They spoke of ancient warnings and galactic protocols. They called humans inheritors and burning ones. They talked about the end of the galaxy, and at the center of it all was Kepler Station, now blazing with energy that had been dormant for thousands of years. Something had awakened the ancient technology. Something that the aliens feared more than war itself. Sir, his communications officer said, Commander June is requesting to speak with you. Put him through. Commander June appeared on the screen. Behind him, Captain Tay could see the research center buzzing with activity. Captain, we need to talk, Commander June said. The station is revealing things we never imagined. And I think we're starting to understand why the aliens are so afraid. What have you found? Evidence, Captain. Evidence that humanity isn't what we thought we were. Evidence that our entire history might be a lie. Captain Tay felt a chill run down his spine. Explain, not over an open channel, sir. But Captain, if what we're learning is true, then those alien fleets out there aren't coming to invade us. They're coming to save the galaxy from us. The communication ended, leaving Captain Tay alone with his thoughts and a galaxy full of ships that wanted to cage humanity forever. Dr. Wu had always been good with languages. It was why he had been chosen for the Kepler Station research team. The Valeri script was unlike anything humans had encountered before, but after 2 years of careful study, he could read basic text and understand simple concepts. But now, with the station's systems fully active, he was seeing Valeri writing that was far more complex than anything they had found before. New sections of the database had opened up, containing millions of records that told a story he wasn't sure he wanted to believe. He sat in his small office, surrounded by screens showing Valeri text, and tried to make sense of what he was reading. The translation software helped with individual words, but the concepts were so alien that understanding required careful interpretation. Dr. Hana knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She looked tired and worried. "Please tell me you have good news," she said, sitting down across from his desk. Dr. Wu shook his head. "I wish I did, but what I'm finding in these records. Dr. Hana, I think the aliens are right to be afraid." "What do you mean?" Dr. Wu turned one of his screens toward her. The Valeri text flowed across the display like water, beautiful but incomprehensible to most humans. "The Valeri weren't just another advanced civilization," he began. "They were what?" "They called guardians. Their job was to protect the galaxy from something they referred to as the Burning Ones. The same name the aliens used for humans." "Exactly. And according to these records, the Valeri spent thousands of years preparing for the eventual emergence of this species. They built stations like this, one all across the galaxy as early warning systems." Dr. Hannah leaned forward. "Warning systems for what?" Dr. Wu pulled up another text file. "The Valeri believed that the Burning Ones would eventually develop space travel and begin exploring the galaxy. When that happened, their very presence would activate Valeri technology, sending out signals to warn all other species. But why? What makes humans so dangerous?" "That's where it gets complicated." Dr. Wu switched to a different screen. "The Valeri records describe the Burning Ones as beings with several specific characteristics. They are bipedal, aggressive, highly adaptable, and most importantly, they have a natural ability to interface with technology far beyond their apparent development level." Dr. Hannah was quiet for a moment. "That does sound like humans." "It gets worse. According to the Valeri, the Burning Ones aren't just technologically dangerous. They're described as carrying what the text calls the fire of creation and destruction. They have the potential to either save the galaxy or burn it to nothing." "And the aliens have believed this for 4,000 years? Dr. Wu nodded. "Every major species in the galaxy has copies of the Valeri warnings. They've all been waiting for the day when the Burning Ones would emerge from their home system and begin activating Valeri technology." Dr. Hannah stood up and began pacing. "This is insane. You're talking about a galactic conspiracy based on ancient prophecies." "Not prophecies," Dr. Wu corrected. "Historical records. The Valeri weren't making predictions about the future. They were recording events from the past." "What do you mean?" Dr. Wu pulled up a new text file, this one larger and more complex than the others. This is where it gets really strange. According to these records, the Burning Ones aren't a new species. They're descendants of the Valeri themselves. Dr. Hannah stopped pacing. "That's impossible. The records say that when the Valeri faced extinction, they did something desperate. They seeded a primitive world with their genetic material, creating a new species that would carry their potential but remain hidden until the time was right." "You're saying humans are descended from the Valeri?" "Not descended exactly, more like created by them. The text uses a word that translates to something like inheritors or successors. We were designed to be their replacements." Dr. Hannah sat down heavily. "And the other aliens know this?" "Some of it. The warnings they received were apparently simplified. They know about the Burning Ones and the danger they represent, but they don't know about the genetic connection to the Valeri. What danger, exactly? What are humans supposed to do that's so terrible? Dr. Wu switched to another file. This one was harder to read, filled with technical terms that the translation software struggled with. According to this, the Valeri were fighting something when they went extinct. Something they called the Devourers of Light, the records describe. Them as entities that consume entire star systems and convert them into something else. Convert them into what? The text isn't clear. But whatever it is, it's described as worse than death. The Valeri spent their entire civilization fighting these devourers, and they were losing. Dr. Hana felt a chill run through her. And they created humans to continue the fight? That's what these records suggest. We were designed to be the galaxy's last line of defense against the devourers. All of our aggressive tendencies, our adaptability, our technological intuition, it was all programmed into us for a specific purpose. But the other aliens don't know this? They know that the emergence of the Burning Ones marks the beginning of something they call the end times. They believe our activation of Valeri technology will somehow bring about galactic destruction. They don't understand that we're supposed to be the galaxy's protectors. Dr. Hana looked at the screens full of alien text. Are you sure about this translation? This all sounds too incredible to believe. Dr. Wu had been asking himself the same question for hours. I've checked it dozens of times. Cross-referenced every term with other texts. The translation is accurate. But if this is true, why don't we know any of this? Why don't humans have any memory of our origin? Because we weren't supposed to remember until we were ready. According to these records, the Valeri programmed a kind of genetic lock into humanity. Our true nature would only awaken when we encountered Valeri technology for the first time. Like what happened when Myra touched that panel? Dr. Wu nodded. The records describe something called first contact protocols. When a member of the inheritor species interfaces with Valeri technology, it begins a process that awakens their full potential. What kind of potential? The ability to understand and control Valeri technology instinctively, enhanced intelligence and intuition, and most importantly, the knowledge needed to fight the devourers when they return. Dr. Hana was quiet for several minutes, processing what she had heard. Finally, she looked up at Dr. Wu. When they return? You're saying these devourers are coming back? Dr. Wu pulled up one final text file. This one was much shorter than the others, but the words seemed to glow with their own light. This appears to be the final entry in the Valeri database. It's dated just before their civilization ended. The translation is, "The devourers have found us. The great darkness spreads across the outer rim. We have failed in our duty, but the inheritors sleep safely in their distant cradle. When the darkness returns, they will be ready. The fire that burns within them will light the way to victory or consume everything in its path. May the cosmos forgive us for what we have done." Dr. Hana stared at the screen. And you think activating this station somehow signals the devourers that we're here? I think activating this station signals everyone that we're here, including things that have been waiting in the dark spaces between galaxies for thousands of years. As if summoned by his words, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed, and Commander June's voice came over the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. We have unknown contacts approaching from the galactic rim. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Dr. Hana and Dr. Wu looked at each other in terror. The devourers? Dr. Hana whispered. Dr. Wu looked back at the Valeri text glowing on his screen. I think we're about to find out what we were really created for. Lieutenant Day stood at his post on the bridge of the Harmony, watching the tactical display with growing dread. The alien fleet surrounding them had grown to over 300 ships from 15 different species. They formed a perfect sphere around Kepler Station, with the Harmony and 2 other human vessels trapped at the center. "Sir," the tactical officer reported to Captain Tay, "the deck battle group is moving into attack formation. Range, 50,000 kilometers and closing." Captain Tay studied the display. The Vex ships were massive, angular vessels that looked like they had been carved from black stone. Each one was 3 times the size of the Harmony and carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Any word from the fleet? Captain Tay asked. Admiral Kong reports that our reinforcements are still 6 hours away, the communications officer said. The nearest Earth defense ships are pushing their engines beyond safe limits, but they can't get here any faster. Lieutenant Day had served on the Harmony for 3 years, but he had never been in a situation like this. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, facing species that had been preparing for this moment for thousands of years. The odds weren't just bad, they were impossible. Captain, the communications officer said, incoming transmission from the deck commander. Put it through. The main screen showed the triangular head of the deck commander. Its dark coloring had spread across its entire face, indicating extreme agitation. Human vessel, the alien said. This is your final warning. Remove all human personnel from the Valeri station immediately, or we will be forced to take action. Commander, Captain Tay replied, we cannot abandon our people. If you want to discuss terms, we're willing to negotiate. There are no terms, the Vex said. The protocols are clear. All inheritor species must be contained. All Valeri technology must be secured. This is not negotiable. A new voice joined the conversation, the crystal chimes of a neural leader. Lieutenant Day had learned to read some neural light patterns during his academy training, and the flashing colors indicated urgent concern. The activation of the station has been detected across multiple sectors, the neural said. Ancient monitoring systems that have been silent for millennia are now broadcasting warning signals. The emergence of the inheritors has begun exactly as the Valeri predicted. What predictions? Captain Tay asked. What are you so afraid of? That commander made a clicking sound that the translator interpreted as bitter laughter. You truly do not understand what you are, what your species represents. Another alien voice joined the conversation. This one was completely new, a deep rumbling sound that came from a species Lieutenant Day didn't recognize. The translator struggled with the alien language before producing words. I am Vorth of the Stone Communion, the new voice said. Our people have slept in the deep places for 4,000 years, waiting for this day. The awakening of the Valeri stations marks the return of the time of burning. The time of burning? Captain Tay asked. When the inheritors emerge, the ancient enemies follow, Vorth explained. The Valeri warnings speak of entities that consume light itself. They follow the scent of awakened inheritor technology across the void. Lieutenant Day looked at Captain Tay. Neither of them had heard of these Stone Communion aliens before, but if they had been hibernating for 4,000 years just to deal with humanity, the situation was even worse than they had thought. These ancient enemies you're talking about, Captain Tay said. Are they the devourers that the station records mention? The silence that followed was more frightening than any threat. When the aliens finally responded, their voices carried a fear that transcended species. You have accessed the deep records, the Vex said. You know of the devourers. We know. Very little, Captain Tay admitted. Our researchers are still translating the Valeri database. Then know this, the neural said, its light patterns now flashing in rapid alarm sequences. The devourers are not merely destroyers. They are converters. They take living matter and transform it into something that serves their purposes. Entire civilizations have been converted, their populations turned into extensions of the devourer collective. And you think humanity will help them do this? Captain Tay asked. We think humanity will attract them, Vorth rumbled. The Valeri created you to fight the devourers, but they also made you into a beacon that the devourers cannot ignore. Your activation of their technology sends signals across dimensions that the devourers use to navigate the void. Lieutenant Day felt his blood turn cold. You're saying we're like bait? You are the key that unlocks both salvation and damnation, the Vex said. The Valeri gave you the power to defeat the devourers, but they also made you irresistible to them. As long as you exist and use Valeri technology, you will draw the devourers to our galaxy. Captain Tay was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady despite the impossible situation. So, your solution is to lock humanity away forever? To prevent us from using technology that might save the galaxy? Our solution is to preserve what can be preserved, the Norrell said. Better to contain the threat than to risk the conversion of all life. That's not your choice to make, Captain Tay said firmly. That commander's head grew even darker. It became our choice when you activated the beacon. Long-range sensors have already detected movement in the void. Something vast is coming toward our galaxy. The Devourers have sensed the awakening. How long do we have? Captain Tay asked. Unknown, Vorth said. The void between galaxies is vast. It could be years, decades, or centuries, but they are coming. Then we have time to prepare, Captain Tay said. Time to understand the Valeri technology and learn how to use it properly. You have time to bring destruction to every living world in the galaxy, Vivek replied. The Valeri warnings are clear. The inheritors must be contained before they can attract the Devourers to populated systems. Lieutenant Day watched the tactical display as more alien ships moved into position. The sphere around them was tightening and weapon systems were powering up across the fleet. Sir, he said quietly to Captain Tay, they're not going to let us leave. Captain Tay nodded. Grimly, I know, tactical, what are our options? The tactical officer studied his displays. Limited, sir. We could try to punch through their formation, but we'd never make it past the first line of ships. What about the station? Could we dock and use its defenses? Unknown, sir. The station's defensive capabilities are not fully understood. Captain. Tay made his decision. Open a channel to Commander June. Commander June appeared on the screen, with the research center's chaos visible behind him. Captain, thank goodness. We need immediate evacuation. The station is revealing information that changes everything we thought we knew about humanity. Commander, evacuation isn't possible. We're surrounded by alien fleets that want to contain all human personnel. They believe we're some kind of galactic threat. Commander June's face went pale. Captain, based on what we're learning from the Valeri records, they might be right. Explain. We've found evidence that humanity was genetically engineered by the Valeri to fight an enemy called the Devourers. But our activation of this station appears to have sent out signals that these Devourers can track. We may have just painted a target on the entire galaxy. Captain Tay closed his eyes. How bad is it? The Valeri records suggest that the Devourers are entities that convert entire star systems into something else. They're described as worse than death, and they follow the scent of activated Valeri technology. And there's no way to shut down the signal? Not that we found. The activation appears to be permanent. The station is now broadcasting on frequencies we can't even detect, let alone control. Lieutenant Day looked around the bridge at his fellow crew members. They were all young, all dedicated to exploring the galaxy and protecting humanity's place in it. Now they were trapped in the middle of an ancient war that they didn't understand, facing enemies that could convert entire civilizations. Sir, the communications officer said, the alien fleet is demanding our immediate surrender. They want all human personnel transferred to their ships for protective containment. Captain Tay looked at the tactical display one more time. 300 alien ships against 3 human vessels. An ancient enemy approaching from the void. And somewhere on the station below, researchers were uncovering secrets that suggested humanity was never meant to exist in the first place. Send. A message to the fleet, Captain Tay said finally. Tell them we need time to consider their demands. How much time, sir? Captain Tay thought about the Earth defense ships racing toward them at maximum speed. 6 hours to reinforcements that would still be hopelessly outnumbered. Tell them we need 1 hour to consult with our government. It wasn't much time, but it might be enough to figure out what humanity was really supposed to do with the power the Valeri had given them. Myra stood alone in the deepest section of Kepler Station, in a chamber that had been sealed for thousands of years until an hour ago. The walls around her pulsed with soft blue light, and the air hummed with energy that made her skin tingle. Ever since she had touched that first panel, The station had been calling to her, drawing her deeper into its heart. The chamber was circular, with a raised platform in the center. On the platform sat what looked like a chair, but it was made of the same flowing material as the station walls. Patterns of light moved across its surface in hypnotic spirals, and Myra could feel it waiting for her. She knew she should call Dr. Hannah or Commander June. They would want to study this room carefully, document everything before anyone touched anything. But something deep inside her knew there wasn't time for that. The alien fleets were getting closer, and the answers they needed were here, waiting for her to claim them. Myra approached the chair slowly. As she got closer, the patterns of light moved faster, and she could hear something like music in the air around her. Not sound exactly, but vibrations that her mind interpreted as melody. It was beautiful and sad and familiar, like a song she had heard in dreams. When she was close enough to touch the chair, holographic displays flickered to life around her. They showed star maps and technical diagrams and streams of data in the flowing Valeri script. But unlike before, she could read it all. The knowledge flowed into her mind as naturally as breathing. She saw the history of the Valeri civilization spread out before her like a vast tapestry. They had been explorers and scientists, spreading across the galaxy in great crystal ships. They had made contact with dozens of species, sharing knowledge and helping younger civilizations reach for the stars, but then the Devourers had come. The images showed massive, dark shapes moving through space, consuming everything in their path. Where they passed, stars went dark and planets became twisted, lifeless husks. The Valeri had fought them for centuries, using technology beyond anything the current galaxy possessed, and they had been losing. Mera watched as the final years of the Valeri played out in the holographic display, their greatest minds working desperately to find a solution. Their fleets falling back system by system as the Devourers advanced. And finally, the terrible decision that would save the galaxy and doom their own people. She saw the genetic laboratories where Valeri scientists worked on their final project. They took the best of their own genetic material and combined it with samples from a primitive species on a distant world. The result was a new kind of being, one that carried Valeri potential but would remain hidden until the right time. The primitive species was humanity, but it wasn't just genetic engineering. The Valeri had done something deeper, something that changed humanity at a fundamental level. They had given them the ability to interface with Valeri technology instinctively, to understand and control systems that would take other species centuries to comprehend. More than that, they had programmed humanity with knowledge that would only activate when needed. Battle tactics, scientific principles, technological innovations, all sleeping in human DNA, waiting for the day when they would face the Devours. Myra sat down in the chair, and the moment she made contact, everything changed. Knowledge flooded, her mind like a dam bursting. She suddenly understood the station's systems completely, could feel every circuit and power conduit as if they were part of her own body. But more than that, she could feel other stations across the galaxy, hundreds of them, all awakening in response to her presence. She was connected to a network that spanned star systems, a communication system that worked instantly across any distance, and through that network she could sense something else. Something vast and dark moving in the space between galaxies, drawn by the signals the stations were broadcasting. The Devourers had indeed sensed the awakening. They were coming, but now Myra understood something that the alien species didn't. The stations weren't just warning beacons. They were weapons. The entire Valeri network was a massive defensive system designed to protect the galaxy from the Devourers. And only someone with Valeri genetic material could activate it. She reached out with her mind, feeling the connection spread across space. On distant worlds, sleeping Valeri installations came online. Ancient shipyards began building vessels using technology that had been dormant for millennia. Defense grids that could turn entire solar systems into fortresses started their activation sequences. The galaxy was preparing for war, but Myra also felt something else. The knowledge flowing through her included memories that weren't her own. The final thoughts of the Valeri scientists who had created humanity. Their hopes, their fears, and their terrible uncertainty about what they had done. They had given humanity incredible power, but they had also made them into something that wasn't entirely human anymore. The genetic modifications went deeper than anyone realized. Humans weren't just descended from the Valeri, they were the Valeri, reborn in a form that could survive what was coming. Myra. Dr. Hannah's voice seemed to come from very far away. Myra opened eyes she didn't remember closing and saw Dr. Hannah standing at the entrance to the chamber, staring at her in amazement. "Are you all right? You've been missing for 2 hours? The entire station is looking for you." Myra stood up from the chair, feeling different than she had before, stronger, more complete, like she had been living her entire life with only half of herself and had finally found the missing pieces. "Dr. Hannah," she said, and her voice sounded different too, calmer, more confident. "I know what we are now. I know what we're supposed to do." Dr. Hannah stepped into the chamber, her eyes wide as she looked at the holographic displays still flickering around them. "What is this place?" "It's a command center. The heart of the Valeri defense network, and I can control it." "Control it how?" Myra gestured, and the displays changed to show a tactical view of the space around the station. She could see the alien fleets arranged in their sphere formation, could feel their fear and uncertainty through the station's sensors. "The aliens are right to be afraid," Myra said. "Humanity isn't just another species. We're the Valeri reborn, with one purpose, to stop the Devourers from consuming the galaxy." The translation said we were created by the Valeri, not that we are the Valeri. The translations were incomplete. The Valeri didn't just engineer us. They transferred their consciousness, their memories, their entire civilization into human genetic code. Every human carries the potential to become what they were. Dr. Hannah looked at her with growing alarm. "Myra, you're scaring me." "You don't sound like yourself." Myra smiled, and for a moment she was just the shy engineer again. "I'm still me, Dr. Hannah, but I'm also more than I was. I understand things now that I couldn't understand before." "What kind of things?" "How to activate the defense network. How to build ships that can fight the Devourers. How to unite the galaxy against the real threat instead of fighting each other." Dr. Hannah was quiet for a moment, studying Myra's face. "And the alien fleets outside?" "They want to contain humanity to prevent exactly this kind of awakening. They're afraid because they don't understand. They think we'll become conquerors like the Devourers. But we're not destroyers, we're protectors. The Valeri made us to save the galaxy, not rule it. Can you prove that to them?" Myra turned back to the displays, reaching out with her mind to touch the alien ships surrounding the station. Through the station's sensors, she could feel the fear radiating from their crews. Fear of humanity, fear of the Devourers, fear of the unknown. "I can do better than prove it," she said. "I can show them what's really coming." She touched the chair again, and suddenly every alien ship in the fleet received the same signal. Images from the Valeri database flowed directly into their communication systems, showing them the true history of the galaxy and the nature of the threat approaching from the void. For the first time in 4,000 years, the galaxy saw the Devourers as they really were. And for the first time since humanity had reached the stars, the alien species understood that they weren't the enemy. The real enemy was still coming, and only together could they hope to survive it. Admiral Kong stood in the command center on Earth, watching the data stream in from across the galaxy. What she was seeing defied everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. The Valeri network was coming online, and the picture it painted was terrifying. "Admiral," her intelligence officer reported, "we're getting readings from monitoring stations in 17 different sectors. Whatever signal Kepler station is broadcasting, it's activating dormant installations across half the galaxy." Admiral Kong studied the tactical display. Bright points of light were appearing on star maps, each one representing a Valeri installation that had been sleeping for thousands of years. But more worrying were the dark signatures at the edge of the galaxy, massive objects moving through the void between star systems. What's the status on our long-range deep space sensors? All arrays are focused on the galactic rim, Admiral. We're detecting multiple large objects approaching from outside the galaxy. They're still years away at current speed, but the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Admiral Kong had been a military officer for 30 years. She had seen humanity's first contact with alien species, negotiated peace treaties, and commanded fleets in 3 different conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for this. Any word from Captain Tay? The last communication was 30 minutes ago. The alien fleets are standing down from attack positions, but they're maintaining the blockade. Something changed their minds about immediate containment. Admiral Kong knew what had changed their minds. The data package that every ship in the galaxy had received was impossible to ignore. Humanity had seen it too, the complete history of the Valeri and the true nature of the approaching threat. Her communication officer looked up from his station. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Kepler Station. It's from Engineer Myra. Put her through. The main screen flickered to life, showing Myra standing in what looked like an alien command center. But she looked different than Admiral Kong remembered from her personnel files, more confident, more focused. Her eyes held knowledge that seemed far older than her years. Admiral Kong, Myra said, we need to talk. Miss Myra, what's your status? Are you all right? I'm fine, Admiral. Better than fine, actually. I've accessed the full Valley database and I understand what's happening now. What's been happening for thousands of years. Admiral Kong had read the preliminary reports from Dr. Wu and Dr. Hana, genetic engineering, ancient warnings, galactic threats. It all sounded like science fiction. But the evidence was impossible to deny. Tell me what you've learned. The Devourers aren't just another alien species, Admiral. They're something else entirely. The Valeri records describe them as entities that exist partially outside normal space. They consume matter and energy, but more than that, they convert living beings into extensions of themselves. Admiral Kong felt a chill. Convert them how? The process isn't fully described in the records, but the results are clear. Entire populations become part of a collective consciousness controlled by the Devourers. They retain their memories and skills, but their will becomes subordinate to the Devourer collective. And these entities are heading for our galaxy? They're already here, Admiral. The Outer Rim monitoring stations are detecting movement in dozens of systems. Small scout forces, testing our defenses and gathering information. Admiral Kong looked at her tactical displays. The bright points representing Valeri installations were spreading across the galaxy, but they seemed pitifully small against the vast darkness of space. How do we fight something like this? The Valeri spent centuries developing weapons and strategies specifically designed to combat the Devourers. The network that's activating now isn't just communication, it's a military system. Shipyards, weapons platforms, defense grids that can protect entire solar systems. And you can control all of this? Myra nodded. Every human can, once they understand what they are. The Valeri didn't just give us their technology, they gave us their knowledge. It's all there in our genetic code waiting to be activated. Admiral Kong thought about the implications. You're talking about changing humanity fundamentally, turning us into something we weren't before. We were never what we thought we were, Admiral. We've always been the Valeri, just sleeping. The activation process doesn't change us, it wakes us up. And the alien species? They've been afraid of this awakening for thousands of years. Because they didn't understand. They saw the warnings about the burning ones and assumed we would be destroyers. But they were wrong. The Valeri made us to be protectors. Admiral Kong was quiet for a moment, processing everything she had heard. Miss Myra, I need you to be completely honest with me. If we activate this Valeri network, what exactly are we committing humanity to? War, Admiral. A war that's been going on for millennia between order and chaos, creation and consumption. The Devourers won't stop with our galaxy. If they succeed here, they'll spread to others. This is where we make our stand. And if we refuse, if humanity chooses not to activate this network? Myra's expression grew sad. Then the galaxy dies. The Devourers will convert every living world, and the universe becomes a little darker and emptier. The Valeri gave us the power to prevent that, but they couldn't force us to use it. Admiral Kong looked around the command center at her staff. They were all listening to the conversation, and she could see the weight of the decision in their faces. Humanity had reached the stars hoping to explore and learn. Now they were being asked to become galactic guardians against an enemy that threatened all life. What do you need from us? Permission to fully activate the network. Once it's online, we can begin coordinating with the alien species instead of fighting them. The Vec have manufacturing capabilities we need. The Norl have defensive technologies that complement our weapons. Even species we've never met have resources that will be crucial in the coming war. And the cost? Humanity as we know it ends. We become something larger, something connected to a purpose beyond our own survival. But we also become something capable of protecting life throughout the galaxy. Admiral Kong made her decision. Do it, Admiral, her aide said quietly. Shouldn't we consult with the other world governments? This affects all of humanity. There isn't time, Admiral Kong replied. If these Devourers are already sending scouts, we need to act now. Myra nodded from the screen. I'm beginning full activation now. Admiral, you should prepare your fleets. Within hours, we'll have access to ship designs and weapon technologies beyond anything currently in service. We're going to need every vessel we can build. How long do we have before the main Devourer force arrives? Based on their current movement patterns, approximately 18 months. Maybe less if they accelerate once they realize we're preparing to resist. The screen went dark, leaving Admiral Kong alone with her thoughts and the weight of what humanity was about to become. Across the galaxy, Valeri installations came fully online for the first time in millennia. Ancient shipyards began producing vessels designed for a war that spanned star systems. Weapons platforms that could crack planets charged their power cores. And on thousands of worlds, members of dozens of species looked up at the stars and realized that the age of peaceful exploration was ending. The galaxy was about to learn what the Valeri had known, that the universe was a dangerous place, filled with entities that viewed life itself as an infection to be cleansed. But it was also about to learn that life could fight back if it was willing to pay the price. On Kepler Station, Myra felt the network complete its activation. She could sense every installation, every ship, every weapon in the vast Valeri defense grid. The knowledge of how to use them flowed through her mind like water, along with the memories of every Valeri who had fought and died to protect the galaxy. She was no longer just Myra the engineer. She was the inheritor of a civilization's last hope, the guardian of light against the coming darkness. And in the deep space between galaxies, ancient intelligences felt the network come online and increase their speed toward the galaxy that had dared to wake the Guardians. Captain Tay stood on the bridge of the Harmony, but the ship around him had changed dramatically in the past 6 months. Where once there had been simple human technology, now there were control systems that seemed to grow from the walls themselves. Displays showed information in scripts that combined human, Vec, Norl, and ancient Valeri writing. The bridge crew included not just humans, but representatives from a dozen different species. Captain, Lieutenant Day reported from his new station, the Outer Rim defense grid is reporting contact. 3 Devourer scout ships have entered the Kepler sector. Captain Tay nodded and turned to the tactical display. The galaxy had been transformed. Since the Valeri network activated, what had once been separate territories controlled by different species was now a unified defense zone. The ancient fear and mistrust between species hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had been overshadowed by the greater threat approaching from the void. "Signal the fleet," Captain Tay ordered. "All ships to battle stations." The fleet that surrounded Kepler Station now was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human vessels flew alongside Vec battlecruisers and Norl crystal ships. In the center of the formation were the new hybrid vessels, ships built using combined technologies from multiple species, designed specifically to fight the DVOURERS. Dr. Keth, the Vec researcher who now served as the fleet's tactical coordinator, made a clicking sound that the universal translator converted to words. The scout ships are maintaining their distance. They appear to be scanning our defensive positions. Let them look, Captain Tay said. It's time they understood what they're facing. On the command deck of the station, Myra sat in the Valeri chair that had become her permanent post. Around her, holographic displays showed the status of defense grids throughout the galaxy. She was no longer the shy engineer who had accidentally activated an alien panel 6 months of connection to. The Valeri network had awakened abilities and knowledge that made her something new, but she was still human at her core. Still, the person who had been terrified of working alongside brilliant alien scientists. That humanity was what kept her grounded as the vast responsibilities of her new role threatened to overwhelm her. Myra, Dr. Hannah's voice came through the communication system. The scouts are beginning active scans of our technology. Should we jam their sensors? No, Myra replied, her consciousness spread across multiple star systems through the network. Let them see everything. Let them report back to the main force exactly what they're facing. Dr. Hannah appeared on one of the displays, standing in what had once been a simple research laboratory and was now a strategic planning center. Are you sure that's wise? We're giving them intelligence about our capabilities. Dr. Hannah, the Devourers have been watching. Galaxies die for millions of years. They've seen every form of resistance, every type of technology, but they've never seen anything like what we've built here. Commander June, now wearing the insignia of a fleet admiral, joined the conversation from his post on the command ship. Unity, the integration of human, Vec, and neural technologies has exceeded all projections. Our ships are more than the sum of their parts, it was true. The cooperation between species that had seemed impossible just months before had produced results that amazed everyone involved. Human adaptability combined with Vec manufacturing precision and neural energy. Manipulation had created weapons and defenses that surpassed anything the Valeri had achieved. Captain Tay, Myra said, opening a channel to the Harmony. Are your people ready? As ready as we can be, Captain Tay replied. The crew has been training with the new systems for months. We know what we're capable of. Myra could feel the confidence flowing through the fleet. Not just from the humans, but from all the species that had joined the Alliance. The Vec had overcome their fear of humanity and embraced their role as manufacturers and logistics experts. The Neural had shared their most closely guarded energy technologies. Even species that had been enemies for centuries had put aside their differences to face the common threat, but it was the humans who had surprised everyone the most. As more of them underwent the awakening process, they had revealed capabilities that went far beyond what even the Valeri records had suggested. They could interface with any technology intuitively, adapt to new situations with incredible speed, and most importantly, they could unite different species in ways that had never been possible before. All stations, this is Admiral June, came the announcement across the fleet communication system. Long-range sensors are detecting the main Devourer force. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Myra felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. Through the deep space monitoring network, she could see them coming. Hundreds of massive vessels that seemed to bend light around themselves, moving through space in formations that defied conventional physics. Each ship was the size of a small moon, and they carried the converted populations of dozens of worlds. Fleet status report, she requested. The information flowed through the network instantly. 3,000 ships of various designs, crewed by representatives from 47 different species. Defense platforms surrounding every major world in the galaxy. Weapon systems that could turn entire star systems into killing fields. It was the largest military force in galactic history, and Myra wasn't sure it would be enough. Dr. Wu, she said, opening a channel to the linguistic center. Any luck with the Devourer communication attempts? Dr. Wu appeared on her display, looking tired but determined. We've been analyzing the signals they've been broadcasting. It's not exactly communication as we understand it. It's more like a virus designed to infect computer systems and organic minds simultaneously. Can we Decode it? We've made some progress. The basic message seems to be an offer of conversion. They're promising to preserve the knowledge and memories of anyone who surrenders voluntarily. They claim the process is painless and that converted beings retain their consciousness. Do you believe them? Dr. Wu shook his head. The Valeri. Records are very clear about what conversion actually means. The consciousness may remain, but it becomes subordinate to the Devourer collective. Individual will disappears entirely. Myra nodded and closed the channel. She had expected as much. The Devourers had spent millions of years perfecting their techniques for consuming and converting life. They wouldn't offer anything that was genuinely beneficial to their targets. All fleet commanders, she announced across the network, prepare for a final coordination briefing in 1 hour. We'll review battle plans and make any necessary adjustments based on the latest intelligence. As the fleet prepared for what might be the most important battle in galactic history, Myra took a moment to think about how far they had all come. 6 months ago, she had been a maintenance engineer who thought she was out of her depth. Now she was coordinating the defense of an entire galaxy, but more than that, she was part of something larger than herself. The awakening process hadn't just given humans access to Valeri technology, it had connected them to each other and to their new alien allies in ways that went beyond simple communication. They could feel each other's determination, share knowledge and emotions across vast distances, and coordinate their actions with perfect precision. It was what the Valeri had always intended. Not just to create warriors who could fight the Devourers, but to create a new form of galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. The Devourers were coming, expecting to find another galaxy full of isolated species that would fall one by one to their conversion process. Instead, they would face something they had never encountered before, a truly united galaxy, defended by beings who had inherited the knowledge and determination of the greatest civilization in history. Myra stood up from the command chair and looked out through the station's viewports at the fleet assembled around her. Ships from dozens of worlds, crewed by beings who had overcome thousands of years of fear and mistrust to stand together against the darkness. The final battle was about to begin, and for the first time since the Valeri had fallen, the galaxy had a real chance of survival. In the depths of space, the Devourer fleet accelerated toward their target, confident that this galaxy would fall as easily as all the others. They had no way of knowing that this time they were not facing scattered civilizations fighting alone. This time, they were facing the inheritors of the Valeri legacy, and humanity had finally come home.